Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the masterclass. Hopefully, this time there's no internet hiccups or any other problems. So let me know if you have any question. You can stop anytime. Just ask if you want to be. If you want to ask the question, you can even join me on stage. We can chat and so on and so forth. So it's there. Okay, cool. Hopefully all of you will join today and so on and so forth. Please keep up with the discussion and so on. Let me know, whatever. Okay, so first of all, what you will need to do for this workshop is you will need to have Node 20 and use NVM if Linux or Mac. Okay, you will need those. You will need one of those. Okay. Then you need to download and install Meraki as well, and that will also be okay. Meraki, you can find Meraki at this link. I'm going to pass the link. Also, all the exercises that we are going to do later on, okay, it's going to be in this repo, Learn Fastify. So at least some of them will be. This Learn Fastify is has longer topics, has more stuff in it than what we'll cover today. So you can take a look at it if you want to, and so on. We might cover it in one of the next masterclasses. So, which from now on you will probably see a webinar like this every month or so. So stay tuned for the next one. So a little bit about me. Well, I don't know. Maybe you know me. You don't know me. I also have a personal newsletter at nodeland.dev. Created Fastify, member of the Node.js Technical Steering Committee, board member of the OpenJS Foundation. Downloads per week. I have 22 billion downloads or something like that on NPM. So you're definitely using my software. Even if you don't want to, you're using my software. So even if you don't use Node, you're probably using my software anyway. So I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's what it is. Okay. So you tell me how you feel about it. Okay. So this workshop is about Fastify. Okay. And by the time I put this slide, we also changed the URL. So it's fastify.dev, but fastify.io is the old one and it still works. So you could get to fastify.dev, and we're going to cover a lot of things Fastify related today. So what we're talking about with Fastify is a web framework for Node, and there's a lot of some downloads. Okay, 5-6 millions per month. There's a lot of collaborators, and a lot of plugins. So we'll talk about that soon. The key part of Fastify, it's about it has a few key technical principles, and the first one is having zero overhead in production, having a good developer experience, and those two might sound in conflict with each other, but we are trying to strive a very good balance. You could write very fast HTTP server, very fast software, and have a bad DX. So anyway, we want to make a framework that works great for both small and big projects, and provide a path to migrate to microservices and back as much as you want, and with a strong focus on security and data validation. So the security posture of Fastify is actually pretty solid. We will soon be publishing also independent security audit on the project. Anyway, it also has a plugin ecosystem, which seems, if it has a plugin, if it's something could be a plugin, it likely should, and it's also easily testable. And on top of that, it does not monkey patch core Express and not like Express does. So if you're using Express does monkey patch some of Node core objects to do its job, which makes it very hard for Node core to maintain and to not break it too. Also, it has semantic versioning, so it has a long-term support policy, as well as very strict HTTP spec support. So one of the key topics of this webinar, it's about the Fastify community, and that's why I wanted to start with that. And in fact, the Open Fastify is an open source project, and it is as good as its community is. Okay, and you should always evaluate an open source project also by its community. Okay, who are the top maintainer, the top committers in that community? Who is leading the pack? Okay, who is contributing? Fastify is a thriving community. Okay, it has a lot of people working on it every day, and in fact it was born as a community even before even before the first line of code was written. Fastify was born when I saw that there were going to be problems in the web framework ecosystem for Node, and I thought, well, maybe it's time to create a new web framework for Node. And I started working. I thought, well, but it's a massive gargantuan project to build such an ecosystem. How can we do that? And well, I said, well, if I want to do this, I need to start. Like, I will start this project if I can convince another human being to do it. And that was essentially why we have Fastify right now, because back in 2016, I met Thomas Della Vedova, and Thomas gave his at a Node.js course that I was holding in Bologna. He loved it, and he said, I want to do open source. And I thought, well, I'm probably thinking of building this. And he said, yeah, sure. And that worked extremely well for him. So anyway, and yeah, that's my slide. Okay. So the route Fastify has chosen is to spread the effort among the company using it. So building a web framework is a thankless job, okay? It's actually not easy to maintain it and monetize it and so on, and we wanted to create something that would last for a long time. Therefore, we picked the route of spreading the effort across many companies, across everybody that uses the framework. What does that mean? Well, if you're using Fastify, the typical answer that you get when you open an issue is, would you like to send a pull request to fix this? And remember to add unit tests, okay? And this is typically how we convert and how we tell people that if they want to be part of this community, they should do their part, okay? It's a culture of co-ownership. This is the commons of everybody. Everybody is responsible for keeping everything healthy. So you should do your part too, okay? Other frameworks take different posture on this point, or they rank up massive amount of issues, essentially. So Fastify, we choose this route. In fact, it has a very good governance, okay, which is it allows people to make a significant and valuable contribution to join the Fastify organization. So if you commit enough, if you fix a lot of bugs, you will get crowned as a maintainer of Fastify. Again, send commits. That's what I'm saying. And it grow quite a lot. Okay, so okay, it's also fast. Okay, it's one of the fastest framework for Node.js that you can use. It also has a it also has a big ecosystem. Okay, and it also very solid. It has a very solid production experience that do not fall on its knees when it receives a lot of traffic. And that is also a big problem when using some other frameworks, that you put it through a lot of traffic, and because of how they're written, they actually have significant performance issues because of that. The community is awesome, hopefully. I don't know if maybe it is. It has 56, Fastify has 56 core plugins. What is a core plugin? Well, core plugins are plugins that are the ones maintained by the core team, the 17 people that I mentioned. And there also are 225 community plugins, and that are maintained by third parties and members of the community. Okay, so it's pretty great. And so let's get started on building your first route in Fastify. Okay, so first thing, okay, we are going to create something, a little bit of a small route. Okay, and the important part here is we're going to use the ESM. So please add type module in your package.json or use an MJS extension. I think that's necessary. So I'm taking my server. So I'm creating my server here. Okay. And we have our package.json with type module in it. And then we have our server. So I can do import Fastify from Fastify. And then we can get our app. Okay. Copilot. And then this is wrong. Damn Copilot. Okay. Something like that. I also need to install Fastify. Almost done. Yep. Okay. So in here, we have our server. Okay. So we could do node server, and this is printing nothing, but we can curl 3000 and it will return a hello world. Cool. Anyway, this is it. So this is the first example. Let's go back to our... Now, one of the biggest important part is Pino. Pino provides the logging for Fastify. With Pino, and this is a typo, nice, and you can create a logger, and then you can even create child loggers, okay? But you can even enable it in Fastify by putting logger true in your as an option. So here I can put logger true, and now if I run my server, I can see a lot of data. Okay, now this is not nice to see, right? Do you think it's nice to see? I don't think it's nice to see. So a solution is to use Pino Pretty, which will give us a nicer looking output. Okay, so what you do is npm I Pino Pretty, and then you can take your server and do npx Pino Pretty, and magically now we have nicer but really verbose statements. Okay. Well, nobody really wants to do this pipe, right? Like this pipe is pretty not nice. The pipe between the server and Pino Pretty. So a solution is, in fact, to create a transport, use a transport, but only use it if the process is a TTY. What is a TTY? Well, a TTY is your terminal. And it typically says there is a human being on the other side. So if there is a human being, I want to have pretty logs. If I don't have a human being, give me JSON so that we can use it forward. Okay. So what we can do is const opts. Okay. And then if process std out is tty, cool. And we want, instead of logger true, we want to say transport Pino Pretty. And actually we need a target. Okay. And let me make this nice. Okay. Ooh. Nice. The keyboard got bananas and restarted itself. Good. So this started happening since I updated my operating system. So this is fun. Okay. Now I can start my server and it will... Nope, did not work. Oh, yes, of course. I need to pass my options here. Okay, great. So now I can start my server and this is nice. and it prints the logs, but it only works if I do if I do does it? Oh yeah, now it's the disabled. So if not, I want to else logger true, and here we go. So if I start the server. If not, I can pass it with less. So Node.js. I keep making typos. Funny enough. Pipe less, and now you can see that the data here is JSON. And you want to be logging in JSON format, because if you're logging in JSON format, you are it's easily processable afterwards. So you really want to log on that format. Okay. We also have another logger in the Fastify organization, which you can get as is the one line logger here that you can get. You can get the one line logger. Okay. And you can install it here. Fastify one line logger. If you prefer a more compact human readable one, you could take Fastify one line logger. And now we can do node server. And now it's tinier and more compact. Probably this should be pretty, but this is a different story. Okay. Should be colored at this point. I think it should. Anyway, this is the gist of it. You can change and configure. There are a lot of possible transport for Pinot. So you can, for example, configure Pinot to stream to Loki, to Grafana Loki, to stream to Elasticsearch, to stream to wherever you want, to be honest. There is no limit to where you can send your logs to. So you can just send the logs somewhere and process them. So it's pretty nice. And the way it's set up, it also can handle the failure mode of your system very well. So it will log stuff, it will set stuff to, so the transport is running a separate thread. And because it's running a separate thread, it can actually do asynchronous work even if your process is crashed or is crashing. So it's pretty solid. Now, the other bit about Fastify is that it's secure by default. So it's not listening to all to all address in your machine. This is actually super important for building for a development environment, because otherwise, if you just call listen on a normal node server, that server will be available on all your address on your machine, making it accessible even on your local network if you don't have a firewall set up on your system. This is a problem for security, and because somebody could be on your network and they could maybe be able to access this system. Okay, so if you want to open it to all ports, to all hosts, you need to pass 0.0.0 on as a host. That will tell Fastify to listen to all ports. Now, why this is very important? Because if you deploy it in Docker, you need to set that, because Docker already creates a protected network for you. So you don't need to, and you need to listen to the specific interface that your server should listen to be exposed via Docker. So this is needed for Docker and cloud environments. But we prefer to have a secure by default lockdown system by default. How do you create a Docker file for Fastify? Well, you can, for example, if you use Alpine, and you might want to use Debian or Ubuntu or even Red Hat if you are in a controlled environment. Use npm CI to install your stuff, and then copy the source code and run it. So, however, we cannot write everything on just one file, right? We want really to be able to scale our development very easily. So in reality, we have our main, which is our server, and we want to also have our app. So we call it our app, and what is our app? Our app is this specific bit, okay? And export async function build opt. Here we go. Okay. And so we could, instead of doing that, we could say import build from app. And so we could build await build opt, and we can we are configuring our system and calling listen. Okay, if I start my server, ooh, I made a mistake because I'm not returning the app. Here we go. Ooh. Okay, and then this is still working. Cool, we have done some little tiny refactoring. So it's not, you know, there is also, all the code is actually also in the Learn Fastify repo. So this is your first route. It's a server split. Here we have server split. Now, the key part here is how do we write unit tests for our app? This is very important because this is where some of the magic of Fastify happens. And what I recommend doing is you can use the node assert module. Sorry, let's keep it this. You can use the node assert module to write a small test. So what we do, we use the node colon test module, and the node assert node colon assert module, and we write a small server and small thing to test our endpoint. Very nice. So what we do, we start writing a .test file. We import, node test, copilot. Somebody wrote a test2 file. Then from node assert. Okay. We can, and then we need the build function that we just exported. And T. This is an async function. So, yeah, you see, it's amazing. -1 single difference. We want to do T after. Yeah, we want to close the app. And I typically also write this because I use node assert /strict. And I can also take deep equal. And call, instead of that, res JSON. And here I can put an actual JavaScript object. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay. Node test. Okay, it's passing. Wow. It's also very fast. Very fast. Look at it. It runs in 18 milliseconds and 14 milliseconds. It's at the test. It's super fast. Why? Let's unpack this step by step. Okay. So this creates our app. It starts it, but it does not listen. It does not call listen on the port. So we are waiting. We are saving some good I/O activity here, and we just call inject to simulate an HTTP request. With the result, here we check the status code and we check the headers that has a JSON content type. Okay. Note that the actual content type of JSON includes the charset. if you see a framework that does not have the charset UTF-8 for their JSON, you might be in trouble if your application is ever used in China or Japan or some of those countries. So you have to have that charset UTF-8 part in your JSON, okay? Now, why a framework will drop that? Well, to cheat on benchmarks. If you stop putting that, you will actually save bytes and therefore increase your throughput. So why do you know? Do I know? Well, we did this at Fastify at the beginning, thinking we were smart and we were just young and inexperienced. So, whoops, sorry. Okay, so this next thing is, how do you shut down your process, okay? Now, shutting down your process is actually super duper hard, and you should actually, you should do it in a way that makes sense, okay? And typically, this is not as simple as you could imagine. So there is a lot of edge cases to handle. So especially in case of an error, okay? What you want to do is, if your application wants to crash, one option is to just crash as bad as possible. Or the other way is to try a graceful shutdown. What is a graceful shutdown means? It means I'm trying to responding as many requests as I could while and so breaking as few users as possible. In order to achieve that, I wrote this module called Close with Grace, neat and tidy, outside of the Fastify module, but it's actually pretty solid. So in order to use it, well, we need to install it. It's actually pretty simple. Okay. And then we do Close with Grace and do await. Yep. Note that we want to specify the error here. And then here is signal. And the signal is the fact that you had a Control-C, essentially. So that's a signal. You can get an event here. So signal received, server closing. Okay. So now if we start our server and we hit Control-C, you see that you got signal received. Well, you might even say do something like this. If you prefer, if you're not interested in specifying it as a JSON, you could even do signal received, server closing. Yeah, SIGINT. SIGINT is our Control-C event. Okay, it's pretty handy. And so on. Imagine that if you're crashing, like, okay, imagine that you are crashing, okay? And yeah, you see it does server closing with error. Now, if we move back to Pinot Pretty, we get a little bit more info because we need more info probably. You can see now that we have a full console log and everything is set up, showed. Hopefully this is helpful. Any other way in which you set up this time, you probably get it wrong, okay? Let me clarify. It's very easy to get it wrong. Close with Grace also has a few options. So if you go and mcolina close with Grace. Last release was on April last year or something. And it has a delay option. So the delay option is the amount of time in which your application is allowed to shut down. So as you can see here, you are actually calling close. And the delay is the time that it allows that close to finish. If your application does not close on that under that delay, then it's going to crash your system badly and just call process exit because it's probably stuck. And the default delay is 10 seconds. Here you go, 10 seconds. Let me pass the link. So, cool. Okay. Now, the question is, how do we configure our app? Okay. Well, the best way to configure your app is by using a .env file. And .env file allows you to specify a certain amount of reading some env files from your disk while you are on a production system. Those will be provided by the runtime or the cloud or whatever. What we do, we can use the .env module to load things up. So let's do it. Okay, so now we can do import .env from .env. And we want to call .env config from const port, const host, okay. So now we could do port and host. Now, if we run this, oh yeah, I need to remove the error. Okay. Now we are listening to only one server, not two. So only the IPv4, not also the IPv6. Okay. But I can actually change this by adding a .env file. Oh. a.env, and I can put host, so 0.0.0.0 and port 3042. Okay. Now, something that you do when you're working with env files is you never commit your .env, but you do commit a .env.sample, and you remove all sensitive stuff from your .env.sample. So now if I run my server, yeah, everything is working, and I can even customize things if I want to. Cool, right? Is it cool? Are you okay with the env file? Node.js is getting native support for .env files, so you will soon not need to install even anything for working with env files, which is, I think, is pretty great. Oh, there's a question coming. It feels like in Node 24.25 we'll have an option for Node column Fastify. I think it's unlikely, but look, if that happens, then maybe. I don't think it's likely. Anyway, so next step is handling errors, okay? Errors is super important, and you need to handle them well. How do you handle errors? Well, you use an error handler. So what you do app.setErrorHandler. Oh, yeah. And you want it to be a sync, maybe. And just, for example, return your error. And you could even do this. You can even customize it with the accept status code. So there's the accept headers. So if there is a browser, then you can send down an HTML. If it's anybody else, you can send down a JSON. You can control it and do more or less what you want here. Let's add a route that throws. Okay. We do kaboom. We start our server. This still, oh yeah, we change it to 3042. Cool. And now we can even call error, and you see that we get oh, what's the problem here? Oh, it throws an error, but we are getting still a 200. Yes, that's incorrect. So what we need to do is we should set the status code to 500. Well, technically, what we want is set it to the status code of the error if it has one, okay? And maybe even log it. So maybe let's call it error so I can avoid some bytes. Okay. And now it's a 500. And if we look at the logs, we get a full log of all the things. Now, something very useful, though, is how do we create errors that have actually all the properties that we want to have from errors? Well, you can use the Fastify error module. And where is it? Fastify error. Here you go. Oh, yeah. Here you go. This is the utility add Fastify error, which allow you to create an error with a code and a message. Cool. So let's try this. So we run this. It's already there, so we don't need to do much. So, and then we call create error. Oh, not create logger. Create error from Fastify error, const kaboom error. Yeah, create error. Okay. This is the code. And then we say something went wrong. And we want to pass a 501 status code, for example. But you could use it, for example, to throw an error if somebody needs a 403, if somebody needs an authentication, for example. Now we call throw new kaboom error. And if we run it, you see that we get the same thing. We get the output that we want to get. Pretty cool, right? Yes, that you don't need to write everything in a try catch, okay? Even if you drop a sync, that would still catch it, okay? Where that will not work is if you do a set immediate or some other stuff that's not a set timeout, set immediate, or any other operation that's outside of the promise chain. If you do that, you are here, we can run a curl. Now you see it's crashing and the server is closing with an error. And you see that this request is stuck because he never got a response, and the server here is waiting, and now everybody's closed. So you can, so there's a question there, so you can declare all your errors in one or more file and export them to be used. That's exactly what it is. And that's the pattern, for example, that we use for Fastify. So if you go in Fastify, here you will go, you can see errors, and that's exactly what we do. Look at it. Look at it. That's exactly what we do. If we go in Platformatic, and you go into one of our packages, for example, DB, you might want to find them here. You can see that there is an errors file, and we got our errors. If you have a sick term with an handler, this is a good case for close with grace. So close with grace handles the error for you. It catches it, okay? So you can actually have a more graceful shutdown, okay? Essentially. Note that if you using, for example, Express, or you need to do this try catch and so on manually and handle all the stuff yourself, because it does not have a clue of any of this what it's using. Next step is to handle a not found. Now, the not found is a specific condition of errors that we thought it should be handled specifically, mostly because it's an handler that is a function handler that is called whenever you are opening a URL that does not have anything there listening. Okay, you don't. If you're opening a URL that does not have an ender attached to. You can also have your system jump to the not found ender by using the called not found function in your routes. Okay, so how do we do that? We add it to my app. Not found ender. Okay, and for example, we can return a not found. Okay, note that we always need also to set the status code. Okay. Ooh. I think it's status or code. Big question. Let me try that. Yeah, no, code is fine. Okay, probably both works. Cool. So here we are here, and we have added the not found. Okay, now we can even call it. So okay, and maybe here we could do request log info sending to not found, and let's restart our server and call it send to not found, and see that we can see the log sending to not found, and but the result is still handled by the not found error, but the not found error. There's a question. Say I serve the front-end app with Fastify. I want to pass all the URL routing to this app. What's the best way to handle such case? It really depends on how you want to do. So if it's an SPA, the typical way is that you want to add a wildcard. So for example, you might want to say the wildcard here. Okay. And then, okay, for example, you can get request params and you will see the, okay, the stuff. Okay. So you certify, you spying that, and then here you serve your SPA. So how do you serve your SPA? For example, you can say if it's an HTML file, for example, you can install Fastify Static, which is one of our plugins. And here you go import static, Fastify Static, unfortunately, from add Fastify Static and Fastify Static, root public. Just put on a wait here just because. You don't need it, to be honest, but it work without to. So instead of doing hello world, we can do res send index.html, send file. I think, okay. Now let's create a file. Make dir public. And, oh yeah, I have. Okay, and here we go, index.html, hello world. Okay, let's put some HTML tag in it. And then title, body. Okay, let's try and see if this is working. Ooh. Oh yeah. Now, haha. Big problem here. I put dir name because I'm bad. And import meta dir name. Here we go. And method get. Yes, of course, because this route as I need to set wildcard false. Here. And now if I curl root, I am getting my test HTML. And if I go to another one, and res is not defined. Oh, yeah, reply. Okay. And here we go. I am getting the same HTML file. Yeah, I would not use the not found under for that because that's still for 404s. So it's better to use the wildcard here. And you can specify a wildcard and disable it in Fastify static. It is the final code. So if you... yeah, I did not mention something. So I'm going to mention, I'm probably missing a slide. So, however, so if you look at it here, we cannot really keep putting all our routes in one file, right? So what we do typically is create a routes folder, and then we can put, for example, it's my spa.js file for all the routes of my SPA. And in order to load this in this file, what we could put, we can define our plugin in this way. And what we could do is export, this is app, and this is a Fastify app. However, if we want to have completion on our on it, we really need to specify tell TypeScript, tell the your editor language service processor to actually add the autocomplete for TypeScript. And now you can see the tab is actually a full-blown Fastify instance. So what you could do, for example, is to take this route, move it here, okay, which is pretty cool, right? And you could move all the others if you want to. And now in app, what you can do is from routes spa and do not a prefix. Prefixes are useful though. And you can register it as a plugin, and then you get your routes. So let's try it again. Ouch, made a mistake somewhere. Oh yeah, this is not booting. It needs to be an async function. Here we go. Okay, and now you can see it's still working as you would expect before. How are you doing so far? Cool. It's time for validations, okay? Fastify embraces JSON schema. That's what we do, okay? And AJV is the best JSON validator, JSON schema validator. So JSON schema is a standard, it's an RFC. So it's not something, it's not a library, and JSON schema and AJV validates your JSON schema. How do you write it? In this way. Okay, and then you can use AJV yourself if you want to, but this is built in Fastify. How do? You specify a schema property, like in here, and you can, for example, validate your query string, your params, your headers, your body, your response, even, it's all in here. Then you can print even special messages if it's a validation error, and you can check it with error.validation. There's a question from somebody, P something, and this router that you create should be a module for Fastify. I don't understand the question. Like, what I created is a plugin. What is in Fastify lingo is a plugin, which is essentially an async function that gets an app and an option object. Okay, the app is a Fastify instance, and you just need to pass this function to the register file in. To the register in the app. So you do app.register, and this is your SPA file. Where should I add a DB Connect for all plugins? This is a very good question. What I recommend you to do is to add for example, a plugins folder here. And we are going to cover it probably in a few more slides. There is a few more slides here. We are going to answer this question later on. So we can add the data validation everywhere, okay? I'm not going to add it and so on. I'm just doing a very quick example, okay? So what you could do, for example, is let's call it, we add a movies JS file here, and we copy this thing. So we get auto completion for otherwise we won't. And then we could do, for example, app.post, and then we specify movies, and we can just reply here. So, well, the problem here is that we don't have a schema. So we can specify a schema here. Here we go. The title here, and then we can, this will be your call. And I'm commenting this out and returning title here. Now let's try this. Okay, so what I can do is I'm restarting my app. I could do curl -x post -h content type application JSON -d, and then we need to specify our title, who, and our year, 2024, cool, and then we need 3042 movies. Oh, this is not found. Why is not found? Well, because we have not registered our app, our module. I need to go in our app and register movies. Okay. Here, ooh, that's double for movies. Okay. Now it's working. If I remove the year, for example, is now complaining and saying, giving me an error, body must have required property year. So validates my body. You all are probably using, this is also true. We also have something for the serialization. So you could even set it as a response and specify that you want a response object with a certain schema. Why you want to do that? Mostly because of performance. If you specify a schema when we are serializing your JSON, we can actually serialize your JSON super fast. So you want to do that. Also, if you want type safety, you could use typebox to have a very, very nice type safe system on your hands. So I personally love this. Okay, so you need to validate your inputs. Okay, if you're not validating your inputs, you're creating a security hazard. Could you use this for HTML form validation? Technically, you could. Practically, it's up to you to do it. I've never said it created the framework-specific components to actually map it to your forms. So practically, you can have a very rich validations object, but in practice, you need to hook it up yourself in your front-end framework because there are way too many options right now. So in fact, we could do in the error. So let's do if error.validation. Let's print this full. Yeah, no, you can see it here. So we're already printing the object. So this is the error that you're getting. Body must have required property year. And now there is a stack, and then we have the path. So you see this validation object. You have an array, and it says that there is a missing property at the top on the root of the object, and this is the message. Okay, so yes, you could practically. It needs to be done. Okay, you need to hook it up in your front form handling libraries on your front end, on your SPA. Can we extend and create your own validation rule? Yes, you can. If you go AJV keyword, the user-defined keyword, here you go. You could add your own keyword, and you can then specify an instance of AJV when you're creating your Fastify instance. And then you could actually, for example, support a range, and so on and so forth. This is documented in AJV. And you have, it has an option on the server. So on the server, you can pass in your instance of AJV. Okay, so you could specify your plugins and so on and so forth. So hopefully answer your question. Note that your schema is part of your code. So if you get your schema from an untrusted source, you can suffer from code injection attacks. So be careful that in order to have fast validations, all those frameworks use the concept of new function, and because they use new function, they will suffer from potential attacks on that. Moreover, if you use the $async feature of AJV, which is disabled by default, you can your system could suffer from denial of service attacks because of how things are set up. So be careful again. Okay, so hooks and decorations. Okay, Fastify is built around a huge concept of extensibility. You have seen it as a plugin ecosystem. You have seen that we can use, for example, Fastify static on serving HTML files. All the plugin system, most of the plugin system is provided by Avvio, which is the loader of everything. Then we have AJV, FastJSON25, Pino, which is our logger, and Find My Way, which is the router. The three extensibility points of Fastify are plugins, decorators, and hooks. Plugins we have covered mostly. Now let's talk the request lifecycle or hooks. So the request. So whenever you receive an incoming request, okay, and thanks Thomas de la Vedova for this graph, okay, and you get an incoming request, we do routing immediately. We create a logger, and then we pass through these steps. This is contrary to a middleware-based system where a request passes through all the middlewares that you have defined. In Fastify, you have a limited number of steps that a request can do, and that's fixed. And you can inject code at each one of those steps. The difference is there's nothing that's executed when you call a callback. You cannot insert code in the middle. If you want to insert code, you get a function pre and post, essentially. And it's part of one of the reasons why Fastify is fast, essentially. How do you use a hook? You can specify a non-request hook, for example, and you can add some code that is executed for each request. For example, we can add a code that does some logs my routes for whatever reason, and you can even specify it for one specific route. So all the hooks can be specified as part of an option in the route definition itself. So now we want to modify our prototype to log an additional line whenever a request is received. So it's what we can do here. We could specify camp at this point and do app add hook on request. And for example, call incoming request 2. And I made a mistake. Oh, wait, not this file. 14. Oh, yeah, it's missing a. Here we go. Okay, so I'm running it. And it's still working. It's working as expected. As you can see, we got incoming request and incoming request 2 as being logged. One of the most magical things that you can do with Fastify is use the on-route hook that allows you to meta program routes. we could use that hook to add the hook only to some selected routes. So what you could do is, so let's call it, this is my log me. Okay. Now we can do app, add hook on route. And here, now if we run this, now you can see that this is called a lot. We have a lot of routes being called. Cool. So, and now what we could do is if route options, and it's called config, and we need to specify dot and then log me. We can add log me here as a hook. And now it's not being printed. Cool. So if I want to add it, I can come here and specify config, log me true. And now I can see it for my log. Cool. Note that in the full solution, we also need to handle the fact that on requests can be an array, so it's a little bit longer. The concept comes the time of how do you share, the decorators, okay? Imagine that you want to attach the concept of who is the current user of a given incoming request. So you will use a decorate request and call it a user property. And now you can use a pre-handler hook to set rec user, so that then all your routes will have the concept of the current user being specified. In similar ways, you could attach it to reply. You can also use the app.decorate function if you want to attach a database connection, for example, to your app. There is a module that we wrote as part of Platformatic called Fastify-user, which you can find it here, that it provides this functionality called extract user, and it supports both JWTs and webhooks, and even custom out strategies. So you might want to check it out. There are other similar modules for OAuth2 or Passport and so on and so forth. There's a lot of modules that you can use here. Are our strategies a standard conventional part of Fastify, or do you mean just all common strategies? No, this is not conventional. This is a module, and you can write your own if you want to. So no, there are a lot of ways in which you can implement the concept of authentication strategies in Platformatic, and that is only one way, one module to do it. Cool. Now, you might wonder why decorators, okay? Well, it is a recording of a fantastic talk that I did in Austin in 2022, at the beginning of June. So a lot of very intense V8 and deep lingo. This is an advanced talk, but it's one of the key things that keeps Fastify fast. So it's an half-an-hour talk, so you should go watch that. I'm not going to cover it, but that's part of the reason why we have explicit decorators. The key other part of Fastify, we have already touched a little bit on them, is plugins and the concept of encapsulation, okay? So the plugin system of Fastify allows you to write an entry point, okay, and provide up two plugins, various plugins, okay? Well, this should be plugin 3, actually. Whatever, sorry for the mistake. And let's see if I can edit it. This is plugin 3. Okay. Cool. This is the system. Plugins can be reentrant and very complex even. And each one of the plugins, we say that it's encapsulated. What does it mean? Well, if you have a plugin, we have created this plugin before, yes. And we have used the plugin, yes. Now, you can see that we can use the plugin with a prefix. Like we can say we want to mount this plugin at this part of at this prefix. It's pretty great. It's pretty neat because we can do that because it's encapsulated. Also, encapsulation limits the decoration only to the child plugins, this plugin tree. In fact, we can even do a root plugin and create context that go underneath. Hooks and decorators are constrained in each context. If you take a look here, you can see that we are specifying hooks in the contexts, okay? And this is one of the key things of Fastify that allows you all the explosion of the modules. It's a little bit of a complex thing, and we're probably going to cover it in details in a follow-up masterclass. You can also break encapsulation easily by using the Fastify plugin utility, and therefore, essentially, plugin 2 is acting in the context of the entry point, so that they can also be accessed at on the other plugin. Again, this is also not correct. Plugins provide separation, so you can even write your application in little sub-apps, and each one of those sub-apps are completely encapsulated by each other. It's pretty great. Now, the recommended project structure sees a plugins folder. These we put all the things that are all the logic that is shared between multiple routes, and then we create a routes folder and with a nested structure. Now, what we're going to do instead is we're going to use this module called Fastify Autoload to avoid a lot of the hiccups of using a plugin system like that. What does Fastify Autoload do? Fastify Autoload allows us to load all the things without listing them manually. If you look at here, we have been loading things up. Loading things up with importing each file, which is a little bit, problematic, to be honest, because, it's a lot of code for not specific reason. So we can import things with Fastify Autoload. Autoload. Okay. And now we could, instead of calling those two, we could Fastify Autoload. And yeah, we want plugins and routes. And we can create plugins. Okay. Here. And for example, here on route.js. So here we move this logic, for example. Ooh, I didn't copy it. Okay. And here, but I need to define this using the Fastify plugin utility to break encapsulation. Or if I don't want to do that, I could just here specify encapsulate. Oh, no. No, it's not working. Encapsulate. False. Okay. Now, I can stop this, start it again. And as you can see, this is still working as it was working before. There is a gigantic amount of mind work that was done into Fastify. Yes, it's a 6-year, well, it started in 2016, and we thought all the details on it. Cool. Okay, so we have set up a little bit of a template for your app, okay? And now you might want to ask, it's already, we created this for you, okay? And it's, And you can assemble it all with all these modules all together and so on and so forth. That being said, this is probably a little bit of hard work to create your starter kit, your template, and so on and so forth. So as part of what we do at Platformatic, we have actually created a meta framework on top, which is way simpler for getting started, combining all these things together, and have an environment where everything just works. So Platformatic takes solve the problem of having the 80%, which is the platform infrastructure. We want you to have a development platform more or less prepared with a lot of the choices already done that removes, but everything is pluggable, that gets you started immediately with all the things that you need. In fact, it has a combination of open source tools, and the first one that I'm going to talk about, okay, is the Platformatic service. Platformatic service, it's actually a basic client, okay, that includes, it has a basic microservice based on top of Fastify that has all the things that you need already built in. And it's super straightforward to use. It has already has Fastify autoload. It has already have the rate limiter for, sorry, the event loop protection system that we have not talked about, but this is a long topic and a long conversation to have. And we have the OpenAPI already set up for your routes. We have a lot of systems already that you can talk with. Another toolkit that we're going to talk about soon, which is the Platformatic client. Okay, I'm going to give you a demo soon. On top of Platformatic service, we have created something called Platformatic DB that takes all the goodness of Fastify and Platformatic and also automatically maps your database to REST routes or GraphQL routes, similar to what Azure or Supabase do, with one caveat here. All of this runs on your node process, so you can customize it, add routes, modify them, and so on and so forth. It's great. We also created a tool called Composer, which allows you to mesh together multiple services and call them from as a single HTTP server. Last but not least, we have a client. You are a lot of you probably are front-end developers. So we have a front-end client that you can use to talk to OpenAPI, API-based systems, which you get a client out of the box, essentially, and you don't need to write fetch manually or writing the types or wrappers and so on. It just works, and you can get a end-to-end type-safe mechanism, but that use actual standards and not just libraries. That makes it, you know, a little bit finicky and hard to maintain long-term. And there is also a client for service to service here. Last but not least, we have a system called Platformatic Runtime that allows you to run all of what I talked about as one single utility. All of those that I talked about are stackables. Why stackables? Well, they are a piece of functionality that you can stack to against each other, essentially as Lego blocks. And in fact, we will soon be launching a little bit of a marketplace to compose and build microservice system with a lot of ease. And let me introduce you to Meraki, which is our tiny system for creating systems like that, okay? And let me set it up. It is Meraki. We can create an application here, specify, for example, let's call it Masterclass, and pick a folder. And you're not seeing the folder, unfortunately, for whatever reason. And but we have selected my Fastify Masterclass thing. We can go next. This is an Electron-based app, by the way. So we can, for example, select our templates, and we can you get a Fastify service, Fastify Composer, or Platformatic Composer, or Platformatic DB. So we start by adding a composer. We can add one more service, which is a Platformatic service, and a Platformatic DB, for example. You can see that we have 3 services. One is called Tapestry, Soup, and Bottles. We have fun names, okay? And for example, you can even add some custom plugins here, and these are all Fastify plugins that we support, so you can check them out. For example, we have Passport or JWT for handling them. We are not, for example, we can use Fastify Static, okay? And now we can go forward. And now you can see that it's downloading and installing everything. And by the way, you can follow along in your chat. Platformatic runtimes runs all these microservices in a single environment, in a single node process. This is great, especially for development, because then you don't need to spin up 7 terminals to start all the things needed for doing the local development. Then you can decide to deploy them as a single block, or you can split them up in deployment to multiple microservices. There is a long video on this topic that I've done a few months ago. Okay, so let me get it for you. Okay, this is a talk that I've done at JavaScript conference. This is probably the best one that you get, that I've got, which is networkless HTTP. This explained it in huge details. So this one is probably the best one. The networkless HTTP one is. Does Platformatic leverage worker thread or MB? I don't know what is MB in the future. Fastify Platformatic leverages worker thread actually. The Platformatic, when you start a Platformatic application, it's run inside a worker thread so that we can support auth reloading, TypeScript compilation, and a lot of other things, so that it can be controlled and monitored. So Platformatic runtime actually start your app as a worker thread so that it can do a lot of things. Now here we have installer module. We need to specify, for example, the static folder. And let's see that we can have all our systems log. We use TypeScript, for example, and we can generate our app. Cool, continue. Now it's complete. So we can go back in our code, okay? And we can go back in our code and we can stop our server here. And now we can go inside this. This is a Platformatic app. And let's take a look at what was created for us. So we have our 3 services and the Platformatic.json that essentially tell us to load from services folder. It also handles config and M files for us automatically. And we have all our system. So now you can do npx, so npm start, for example, here. And if you look at it, you will see that it's actually running all the compilation for TypeScript for us. So you don't need to do to worry about setting that up. Okay. And we can go back and, yep, there is a mistake here, mostly because I created a system, which she did. So let me remove the static stuff. Here we have our packages and we are removing this. Cool. Yeah, okay. So now it has loaded. So this is the Platformatic Composer system. And for example, we can go and see what was provided for us automatically. This is an OpenAPI system, and it has, by default, this is movies is provided by Platformatic DB. So we get some REST routes out of the box, and we can have other routes like that. So if we take a look at the code, we can see that Platformatic DB use SQLite by default, and when you generate it, but you can configure use MySQL, Postgres, and so on. And we are actually running migrations. So the migration system is in here, and you can have, for example, do an undo migration, and it's just basic, or you can use any migration system that you want, to be honest. And these automatically also will also hook it up in our types. So in fact, if we go, so here we can actually have all our systems and all our types configured. And here you can see that we have all our stuff. Cool. And pretty great. Found the bug. Then what you can do is you can potentially use Platformatic client to generate all the things. Anyway, the gist here is that you can get all of this done and set up, and this already adds all the things that you need to set up your to start yourself in the Platformatic journey. You can even, if you are if you just want to use one service, you can just use Platformatic service create, and these will create just a single Platformatic service, which it's simpler and it has less things, but you are skipping all these a lot of the complexity. You can skipping the microservice network and so on and so forth. You just have one single service. Very neat. You can use this to create a DB and add the DB microservice or a lot of other things like that. Think I am mostly done. Okay. I don't know if there are any more questions. What will be the price? All the what I demoed, it's Apache Chill and open source. We are soon launching an enterprise plan that you can, your company can buy for some additional features and all the things that a company needs to build Node services and put Node services in production. So here, this is a Platformatic service. And here you can see this is way more tiny. It has routes. It's just one single system, and so on and so forth. Cool. Oh, please star us. Okay, take a moment and put a star at Platformatic. So by default, we will have some simple microservice app. Yes, that's exactly what this is. So now you could do, for example, npm start, and these will start up your system. And this is Platformatic service. So you can get, oh, sorry, this did not. Oh, yes. We need to enable, sorry, if you go Platformatic npm start, then you can enable, for example, OpenAPI, which it didn't. Okay. OpenAPI. Found a bug. Good. Sorry. Okay. Would enterprise version cause a vendor lock with Platformatic, or is it a better setup boilerplate code with Fastify? It's a paid product, but you can yes and no at the same time. So you will need to pay a license for it, and you can use it. And then if you don't want to use it, you could stop and go back using the open source versions anytime that you want. So that's it. I think that's all, folks. And do we have a record? Yeah. How much fast will be using Fastify with GraphQL than Fastify with REST? What do you mean fast in terms of performance? GraphQL is a more costly transport than REST. So you will lose something. If you use GraphQL, you would get, you will use Mercurius, which is very much optimized, and you will get very good performance on Node. I would love to have your opinion on JavaScript web focused servers like Nitro, which are runtime agnostic, versus Fastify, which is Node focused. Typically, if you are creating something that is runtime agnostic, you are building some abstractions on top. Those abstractions can cost more perf. So, and they will perform worse than Node.js. Then the question becomes if you want to deploy, where you want to deploy your servers and so on. Essentially, up to you. If you're using Node, well, then you might just want to use Node. Did I had trouble today with DD trace? Why should I have had trouble today with DD trace? DD trace vulnerability. Oh, so it seems that somebody published a CVE against DD trace, and oh, it's already fixed. Okay, 18 minutes ago. It was fixed 18 minutes ago. So fun. So this is the fix. So if we go here, you can see this is npm audit, and this is fixed by, and it is it. And hopefully Brian will fix it, will ship something. It 8 minutes ago. CI is still running. So hopefully this will get out soon. Cool. I think it's good for this evening. I think we are going to quit. And I don't know, see you next month if you want to do another session. Thank you very much for joining, and let me know if you have anything more. We really need to do a long session on Platformatic at some point soon, sooner rather than later. So can't wait to show you all the things. Perfect. Bye-bye.